Hello, and welcome to another flight from the Altitude Flight Simulation Center. My name is Dylan and I'll be taking you along this flight. We're currently set up in Victoria and we'll be flying to Vancouver. It's a little cloudy and a little rainy, but we should be able to break through the clouds around 4,000 feet. Then as we come back into landing, we'll be using and demonstrating our ILS systems to make a cloudy landing a bit easier. So we'll run through our before takeoff checklist, make sure we're all set for departure, and then carry on with our flight. Our auto brake is set to RTO. Flight controls have been checked and confirmed. Auto throttle is armed. V-speeds are all set. Flaps are set to 5 and indicating, and stab trims are set. Transponder is set to TARA. So we are all ready to take off. We'll get a nice view of what that looks like, and let's start it up. Had a problem with our auto throttle, that's okay. And we are V1 and rotate. Good, positive rate, gear up. Good, and gear off. There we go. So on our artificial horizon just in front of us, you can see these magenta lines here creating a nice T for us, directing us on our flight. It'll take us along our flight path here. So we setting us along a left turn to follow this solid line pointing out. This will be directing us to Vancouver. And we can set flaps to 1. And we're about at our set height, 5,000. We're going to continue climbing up to 11,000 feet. That's where we'll cruise for the duration of this flight. So now we'll be using the ILS system our flight director, to help us make our flight. As we go through the clouds, we can't see too much. So this flight director is ensuring that we are actually following the flight plan. make sure the flight director is a perfect T, we'll be flying perfectly set for 11,000 feet at a good speed and set up a good clean cruise. And we're breaking through the clouds finally. You can see we'll be just above them during our flight. Going to be surfing just over the clouds and get a nice view. Adjust our nav aids so that we can follow along with our plan a little bit smoother. Then we'll trim out nicely to hold at 11,000 feet. Once we've gotten a good control of the plane, we're set up in cruise. Tell the passengers they can take their seatbelts off, walk around the cabin, and we'll start setting up for the arrival into Vancouver. Inside of our FMC, we've got our plan set. We'll be landing on runway 08 right, using the ILS system. The frequency can be found on IFR charts. We'll be using frequency 109.8. And as we get closer, we'll transfer that to our used navigation frequency. And it'll take over as we approach the airport. Let's actually climb a little bit higher, get a better view of these clouds. We've cleared to climb 13,000 feet. We'll adjust our navigation for a level change so it'll take us up and use a slightly faster speed for climb. As that comes up, we'll start adjusting so that we don't overtake our desired altitude too bad. There we go. And that's a lot nicer view than we that before. Looks like we forgot an auto brake step on our takeoff checklist. See, it's fairly finicky trying to keep our plane perfectly set on the flight director. There is a bit of turbulence on this flight, so it's helping and throwing us around a little bit, but as long as we're doing small, fine adjustments, it's fairly simple to, or should be easy to stay on your flight path. If not, you can set on autopilot and relax for the next 15 minutes of your flight. That's a little warning, we just went a bit too far off. If you get caught looking outside at the nice view for too long, you might find your plane wandering a little bit. So we'll make some adjustments for that. Just about at our turnaround point where we'll soon start to descend and decelerate to prepare for the approach into Vancouver. Looks like it's a bit of a sharp turn. We won't bank that hard, but enough to get back online in a timely fashion. approach our checkpoint booth up on our GPS. We're getting rather close. Since we're using the heading select navigation, we'll start to wrap it around to point us on our next line. Personally, it's just the navigation preference to use that. So just up here, we'll adjust our heading as we start to make our turn after the booth checkpoint. And we'll be wrapping around to a heading of maybe 225. Looks like almost perfectly set on 220. And then we should be able to follow that for our next cruise leg. Through a fair few clouds here. We'll have to enjoy the view once we get a chance to see it again, because it'll be raining back in Vancouver. Get a view out at the ground at certain points. It's there's a hole in the clouds, and you can see back onto the ground, but they look pretty few and far between. And just off to the left, we can see, maybe if we bank a little bit, see a hole in the clouds there. Bit more fair weather than they'll have in Vancouver. We'll be approaching the top of descent and top of deceleration point pretty soon here, so we'll be going right back into the clouds, and that should hold until about I believe 1,000 to 2,000 feet above the ground before we can see again. Good warning. We were paying attention to another instrument for too long and get our altitude back on. And as we reach our top of descent, we'll set our altitude next marker to be, say, 5,000 feet, and we'll start to bring our speed back, setting it up to be below 200 knots in Vancouver's airspace. Our flight director is making adjustments to accommodate our new flight settings. Coming down to this speed, we'll be set to bring our flaps down as we enter in our flight path around the airport. Since we're back into it, all we see are the clouds again. Now we rely fully on the instruments in front of us, trust them that they're telling us what's actually happening outside. And they should be able to complete a safe and successful flight. make sure we have our nav frequency set for the runway at Vancouver 08 right. We have 109.8, and that'll take us onto the runway. We'll have our passengers fasten their seatbelts again. We're preparing for our landing. And we'll do a slight right turn here. And we'll take control of the throttle as well. It's all the way back, but we'll make sure we're giving it the inputs and hopefully doing the proper job. And ensuring our reference speeds for our landing are set. We'll use 30-degree flaps at a speed of 142 knots. Start to set our flaps as we're coming across the runway. We can see on our GPS right here, the runway is shown. It's got this little blue line sticking right out of it. As we, this triangle here, start to approach it, we'll set our flaps and prepare for the landing. Initially, we'll set flaps to 5 and carry on as we are moving about the circuit. And flaps are moving. And our lighting is all good with the proper frequency. We'll see our setup on the approach frequency as we come in. We're coming just below the clouds, and it might be hard to see on the camera, but the airport's just off our left side, and we'll be able to see it in front of us rather soon. Closer, we should see our approach navigation assistance come up. Right around the ceiling of the clouds. It's pretty cool to see the difference skimming or surfing right above them and then flying just at the ceiling. switch on. So now our flight director is being assisted by the navigation frequency. And along our artificial horizon, we will be using diamonds located just beneath and just on the right side of the artificial horizon to point us on where to position the nose of the aircraft. The speed did come up a bit on the as we swap to our approach, so we'll just pull that back. Get ready to set flaps 10, and then landing gear and flaps following will be set. As we prepare to set up for our final leg, there we go. We have caught our localizer. So on our artificial horizon, we can see two diamonds that are both telling us how to point the nose of the aircraft in order to make a safe landing. So currently it's saying we're a bit far out on the right side of the runway, so we'll correct that. We'll bring it in as we line up nicely. So we will turn our flight director off for this and try to just use these two diamonds here. This goes a little up. We'll pull our nose up slightly off to the right. And we will correct our aircraft. If we're looking ahead, we can see the airport in front of us. We'll start preparing, bringing our landing gear down, preparing flaps, and making sure we are ready for a landing. All of our lighting is set, our navigation is working properly, have to touch down. So we are slightly right and a bit above. To the left, we can see it's winging out a little bit. And as our diamond moves a bit below here, we'll let our nose follow a little bit to try and get it perfectly lined up in the middle. Same with our left side. It seems we've lost it a little bit. Prepare our next set of flaps. Our final position will be 30 and we are currently at 25. So we'll have to be below a speed of 175 knots. Flaps are now set at 25, and we'll just work on lining up our diamonds. So we don't want to let them pass the circles shown here. We'll be too far out for comfort for those. And we would likely have to make a missed approach. And our final flaps are set. So now it's just a matter of putting it on the runway. 1,000. Try and catch our reference speed. Looks like we're a little left, or sorry, a little bit right, so we'll correct to the left. And lift our nose up a bit.
500. 400. 300. 200. 100. Approaching minimums. 50. 40. 30.
And now we just let the aircraft come down
20.
on itself.
Airspeed low. Airspeed low.
We are a bit low, but we made our touchdown. We'll keep it off the grass. It was a bit. There we go. We'll keep it off the grass. Got our reverse thrusters going, and we'll be coming to a stop. Oh, we'll taxi it in. There we go. We can use our tiller now. Alright, and we will follow our line into our terminal. Flaps are back up. Have our taxiing lights on. Take it in just to our right, following beside this cargo jet. Follow it in, we've got the handlers just in front of us. Make sure our wings don't clip, and we will bring the aircraft to a nice stop right up here. And that's the end of our flight. We will make sure we have power and or attach our ground power to all the crew. Set that up so that when we shut down the engines, there will still be power to the aircraft, and run through our final checklist. Parking, we can turn off our IRS modes. The window heat can go off. Right and left off. Anti-icing was not turned on. We don't have to worry about that. Our hydraulic pumps go off with packs set on auto, which they are. Isolation valve is currently set auto. We'll put that open. APU bleed set on. Exterior lighting can all come off as we're coming in. Fuel pumps we will leave just one on, and ground power is on. Galley light can go off. Alright, there we go. We won't need that anymore. Our emergency exit lightings have been turned off. Flip that off. Left and right packs off. APU bleed off. Final fuel pump off. Ground power switched off. Off. And our battery would be the final switch, but we'll leave that so we have a little bit of lighting. Final cut off. And that concludes our flight. We'll see what we have for next time. Hopefully you'll join us and enjoy the rest of your night.